The massive dome of the Galactic Senate stretched high above the assembly floor, its crystal walls showing the stars of 1,000 worlds. In the center of this great hall, John Harrison stood alone at the human podium, his blue uniform marking him as Earth's ambassador to the galaxy. Around him, creatures of every shape and size filled the circular rows of seats, rose up like a mountain of observers. The air felt heavy with tension. John could hear his own heartbeat as he looked up at the towering figure of Chancellor Vextar. The Zephyrian leader stood 12 feet tall, his purple skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. Forearms gestured dramatically as he spoke, his voice booming through the translation devices that every being in the room wore. "The evidence against the species known as humans is clear," Vextar announced. His golden eyes swept across the assembly. "They have broken the sacred laws that keep peace in our galaxy. They expand too fast. They take what is not theirs. They build weapons that could destroy us all." John felt his stomach twist. He had spent 3 years on this station, trying to build friendships with the other species. He had shared human art, music, and stories. He had helped sick aliens with human medical knowledge. None of that seemed to matter now. The Chancellor continued reading the charges. "The humans have violated the non-interference protocols by contacting primitive species on 17 worlds. They have established colonies in restricted space zones. Most serious of all, they have developed quantum weapons that threaten the stability of space itself." A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. John saw fear in many eyes, but also something else. Some of the senators were nodding to each other, quick glances passing between certain groups. It looked planned, rehearsed. "I ask for permission to speak for my people," John said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite his nervousness. Vextar's forearms spread wide. "You may speak human, but know that the evidence against your species is overwhelming." John stepped forward. He had prepared for this moment, but the words felt heavy in his mouth. "Honored members of the Galactic Senate, I do not deny that humanity is young. We only reached the stars 200 years ago. We make mistakes because we are still learning." He paused, looking around the chamber. Some aliens leaned forward, listening. Others had already made up their minds. "Look at what we have given to the galaxy," John continued. "Human doctors have cured the plague that killed millions on Altair 7. Our engineers helped rebuild the cities on Kepler Prime after the asteroid strike. We share our technology freely. We ask for nothing in return but friendship." A tall, thin alien with gray skin stood up in the Valdorian section. "The human speaks of friendship, but his species spreads like a disease. They have established outposts on 47 worlds in just 2 centuries. No species in galactic history has expanded so rapidly." John felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We expand because we explore. It is our nature. But we do not conquer. We do not enslave. Every human colony follows galactic law, except when they do not," hissed a voice from the crystalline collective. The speaker was a being made of living crystal, its body reflecting the chamber's lights. "The colony on Vega 9 refused to allow our mining teams access to their asteroid belt, because those asteroids contained the only source of water for their terraforming project," John replied. "The colonists offered to share the water with your people. They asked only that you not take it all." The crystal being's light flashed angry red. They had no right to refuse. "The collective has mining rights in that system." John looked up at Chancellor Vextar. "This is what I do not understand. The galaxy is vast. There are millions of star systems with no intelligent life. Why must we fight over resources when there is enough for everyone?" "Because," Vextar said slowly, "some species cannot be trusted with unlimited growth. Some species must be controlled before they become a threat to galactic peace." The words hit John like a physical blow. He realized then that this trial was not about justice. It was about fear. The older species feared what humanity might become. "You fear us," John said quietly. "Not because of what we have done, but because of what we might do." The chamber fell silent. Even the constant hum of the life support system seemed to pause. Vextar's golden eyes narrowed. "The human speaks truth. We do fear you. In 2 centuries, you have advanced from primitive chemical rockets to quantum drive starships. You have developed technologies that took us millennia to achieve. If we allow you to continue unchecked, where will you be in another 2 centuries? John felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. We will be what we have always been. Explorers, builders, friends to those who want friendship, or conquerors, said a voice from the Hive Mind Nexus section. The speaker was one of the insect-like beings whose collective consciousness spanned dozens of worlds. Your species shows all the signs of a conquering race. Rapid expansion, technological advancement, military development. We develop weapons. Only to defend ourselves? John protested. Every species in this chamber has weapons. But not quantum weapons, Vexstar rumbled. The reports from our intelligence services are clear. Humanity has developed the ability to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. Such power in the hands of a young, aggressive species cannot be tolerated. John's mind raced. Quantum research projects were classified, but not secret. Human scientists had published their discoveries in galactic journals. They had invited alien observers to their laboratories. How could sharing knowledge be a crime? We have hidden nothing, John said. Our research is open to all species. We believe that knowledge should be shared, not hoarded, Set said. The representative from the ancient Archon Empire is perhaps your greatest crime. You give dangerous knowledge to species that are not ready for it. You upset the balance that has kept the galaxy stable for 10,000 years. John stared at the Archon. The ancient being looked almost human, but its eyes held the weight of millennia. You speak of balance, but I see only control. You want to keep other species weak while you remain strong? The Archon's expression did not change. You speak of wisdom earned through experience. Some truths are too dangerous for young species to know. Then why not teach us? John asked desperately. Why not guide us instead of condemning us? Because Vexstar said, his voice final, some species cannot be taught. They must be contained. The Chancellor raised all 4 arms. The time for debate is over. We call for the vote. John watched as the holographic displays around the chamber lit up with the symbols of each species. One by one, they voted. Zephyrian Empire voted for isolation. The Valdorian Trade Consortium voted for sanctions. The Crystalline Collective voted for colony seizure. As the votes accumulated, John noticed something that made his blood run cold. The 5 most powerful species in the galaxy, the Zephyrians, Valdorians, Crystallons, Hive Mind, and Archons, all voted the same way. Not only that, but dozens of smaller species followed their lead exactly. This was not a trial. This was a coordinated attack. The final tally appeared on the main display. 712 species voted for punishment. Only 135 voted for mercy. Earth was condemned. Vexstar's voice echoed through the chamber. The Galactic Senate has spoken. The species known as humanity is found guilty of aggression, expansion violations, and weapons development. The sentence is immediate isolation from galactic society, complete trade embargo, and seizure of all human colonies beyond the Sol system. Earth has 30 standard days to comply. John felt the chamber spin around him. 30 days. 12 billion humans on Earth depended on galactic trade for food, medicine, and raw materials. Without it, his people would starve. This is not justice, John said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. This is murder. Vexstar looked down at him without emotion. This is survival, the survival of galactic civilization. As the session ended and the aliens began to file out, John remained standing at the human podium. He activated his communicator with trembling fingers. This is Ambassador Harrison to Earth Command, he said quietly. The vote is against us. Begin Protocol 7 immediately. On the other end of the transmission, President Lisa Carter's voice was steady, despite the terrible news. Understood, John. Come home. It's time to show them what humanity really is. John looked around the empty chamber one last time. The aliens thought they had one, thought they had contained the human threat. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. 3 weeks had passed since the Galaxy Senate delivered their harsh judgment. Captain Jake Miller pressed his face against the small window of the stealth ship U.S. Shadow as they drifted through the darkness of Zephyrian space. The ship was Completely silent, its engines shut down, running only on battery power to avoid detection. "Any sign of patrol ships?" whispered Lieutenant Ben Clark from the pilot's seat. Jake shook his head. "Nothing yet. The Zephyrians think their space is perfectly safe. They have no idea we're here." The Shadow was humanity's most advanced spy ship, built using technology that the aliens had never seen before. Its hull could bend light around it, making it invisible to most sensors. Its engines produced no heat signature. It was like a ghost, moving through space. "Captain," came a soft voice from the communications station. Sergeant Kate Morgan looked up from her screens with excitement in her eyes. "I'm picking up encrypted transmissions from the planet below. High-level government channels." Jake moved to her station. "Can you break the encryption?" Kate smiled. "Already done. The quantum computers back on Earth cracked their codes months ago. We've been listening to their private conversations ever since the trial." Jake felt his heart race. This was what they had come for. Earth needed to know the truth about what had happened at that trial. President Carter suspected a conspiracy, but they needed proof. "What are they saying?" Jake asked. Kate's fingers danced across her control panel. The alien voices filled the small bridge, translated into English by their computers. Jake listened, with growing anger as the truth became clear. "Phase 1 is complete," said a voice they recognized as Chancellor Vexter. "The humans have been isolated as planned. Now we move to Phase 2. Another voice answered, this one belonging to Trade Minister Zekalon of the Valdorian Consortium. "My ships are already moving into position around the Sol system. 30-day deadline passes. We will control all trade routes in and out of human space." "Excellent," came a third voice, cold and ancient. Jake recognized it as Archon Prime Turval, leader of the oldest empire in the galaxy. The humans must never be allowed to share their quantum technology with the younger species. That knowledge belongs to the hegemony alone. Jake's blood turned to ice. The hegemony. He had heard whispers of this secret organization, but most people thought it was just a conspiracy theory. The conversation continued. "What about the other species who voted against the sanctions?" asked a new voice, buzzing with the strange harmonics of the hive-mind nexus. "They will be dealt with," Vextar replied. "Any species that shows sympathy for the humans will find their trade agreements canceled, their colonies blockaded. They will learn to follow our guidance, or they will suffer the consequences." Kate looked at Jake with wide eyes. "Captain, they're not just talking about Earth. They're planning to punish anyone who tried to help us." Jake clenched his fists. The trial had been a lie from the beginning. These 5 species had planned everything, turning the entire galaxy against humanity to protect their own power. "Keep recording," Jake ordered. "We need every word of this." The alien voices continued their planning. They discussed which human colonies to seize first, which technologies to steal, and how to divide Earth's former territory between themselves. They talked about humanity like humans were insects to be crushed, but then the conversation took a darker turn. "That human research facilities?" asked the Crystalline Collective representative. "Our spies report unusual energy readings from their underground installations." There was a pause before Archon Prime Turval answered, "Those facilities concern me. The humans have been working on something called Project Prometheus. Our intelligence suggests it involves dimensional manipulation." "It's impossible," scoffed Vextar. "Dimensional technology is beyond any young species." "It took the Archons 50,000 years to develop basic dimensional mathematics. And yet," Turval said slowly, "the energy signatures do not lie. The humans may have discovered something we do not understand." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He knew about Project Prometheus, but only the basic details. It was classified above his security level. Even President Carter had only hinted at its true purpose. "If the humans have developed dimensional technology," Gellin said with fear in his voice, "then we may have made a serious mistake." "No," Turval replied firmly. "We acted at the right time. If we had waited longer, they might have completed their research. Now they are isolated, cut off from the resources they need. Whatever they are building will fail." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the shadow in stunned silence. Jake stared at the recording device, his mind racing with the implications of what they had just heard. Captain Kate said quietly, "We need to get this information back to Earth immediately." Jake nodded, but before he could give the order, their sensor operator called out an alarm. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, Zephyrian battlecruiser, heading straight for us." Jake rushed to the sensor station. "How did they find us? I don't know, sir." They're still running silent. The massive alien warship appeared on their screens, its weapon systems already charging. Jake realized with horror that their stealth technology had failed somehow. "All hands prepare for emergency jump," Jake ordered. "Set course for Sol System, maximum speed." "Sir," the navigator called out, "jumping from this close to their planet will create a quantum signature. Every ship in the system will know we're here." Jake looked at the approaching battlecruiser, then at the precious recording they carried. "Do it anyway." Earth needs this information. Space twisted around them as the shadow's quantum drive engaged. In seconds, they were millions of miles away, racing toward home at faster than light speed. Behind them, alarms were probably screaming throughout Zephyrian space. During the 3-day journey home, Jake studied the recordings with his crew. The more they learned, the more frightened they became. The hegemony was not just 5 powerful species working together. It was a shadow government that had been controlling the galaxy for thousands of years. They had evidence of dozens of species being manipulated. Their leaders bought or threatened into compliance. They found records of entire civilizations being destroyed when they became too advanced or too independent. The hegemony had been playing the role of galactic peacekeepers while secretly crushing anyone who threatened their control. "Look at this," Kate said, pointing to a section of encrypted data. "They've been suppressing technological development for millennia. Any species that discovers quantum physics too quickly gets visited by pirates or suffers natural disasters that set them back centuries." Jake studied the files with growing rage. They've been keeping the entire galaxy in the Dark Ages, preventing progress to maintain their own power. When the shadow finally reached Earth's solar system, Jake was shocked by what he saw. The planet looked different somehow, surrounded by a shimmering energy field that made his instruments go crazy. "Earth Control, this is Shadow requesting permission to dock," Jake transmitted. "Permission granted, Shadow. Welcome home. Report." "Directly to Underground Command upon arrival?" Jake had never heard of Underground Command, but he followed the navigation beacon to a landing pad built into the side of a mountain in Colorado. As they descended, he could see massive construction projects everywhere. Huge machines were building something underground, their purpose hidden from view. President Carter was waiting for them in the landing bay, along with Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the head of Earth's Quantum Research Division. Jake had met the president before, but Dr. Rodriguez was a legend among scientists. It's known for her breakthrough work in dimensional physics. "Captain Miller," President Carter said as Jake stepped off his ship, "I hope you bring good news, because we're running out of time." Jake handed her the recording device. "Ma'am, it's worse than we thought. Trial was completely staged. 5 species have been controlling the galaxy for thousands of years, and they see humanity as their biggest threat." Dr. Rodriguez took the device and plugged it into a portable computer. As she listened to the alien conversations, her expression grew grim. "They know about Project Prometheus," she said finally. "What exactly is Project Prometheus?" Jake asked. President Carter and Dr. Rodriguez exchanged glances. "Come with us, Captain. It's time you learned what humanity has really been working on." They led him through corridors carved deep into the mountain. Jake saw laboratories filled with equipment he didn't recognize, workshops building devices that seemed to bend light around them, and computer centers running calculations that made his head spin. For the past 50 years, Dr. Rodriguez explained as they walked, "Our scientists have been working on the greatest challenge in physics, controlling the fundamental forces of reality itself." They stopped before a massive window that looked down into an enormous underground chamber. In the center of the chamber sat something that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. It looked like a sphere of pure energy, about the size of a small building, rotating slowly in the air without any visible support. Lightning played across its surface, and space itself seemed to bend around it. "What is it?" Jake whispered. Admiral Kevin Stone stood on the bridge of the orbital station Liberty Prime. Watching the countdown timer on his main screen, 7 hours remained until the 30-day deadline expired. Around Earth, 17 massive alien fleets waited in the darkness, ready to enforce the Galactic Senate's harsh judgment. "Sir," called Lieutenant Tony Garcia from the communications station. "We're receiving another surrender demand from the Zephyrian fleet commander." Kevin shook his head. "Ignore it. They'll understand our answer soon enough." Through the massive windows of the command bridge, Kevin could see Earth below, its blue surface gleaming in the sunlight. Everything looked normal, but Kevin knew that appearances could be deceiving. Deep beneath the planet's surface, Dr. Rodriguez and her team were making final preparations for the most ambitious project in human history. "Admiral," came a voice from the sensor station. "I'm reading energy buildups across all human colonies. Mars, Europa, Titan, all the outer settlements. Whatever they're doing down there, it's happening everywhere at once." Kevin nodded. Project Prometheus was not just about Earth. Every human settlement in the Sol system was connected to the dimensional phase network. When Earth disappeared, her children would disappear with her. The alien fleet commanders had no idea what they were about to witness on the planet below. President Carter stood in the main control room of Underground Command, surrounded by screens showing the status of phase generators across the solar system. Dr. Rodriguez moved between workstations, checking calculations and monitoring energy levels. "All stations report ready," Dr. Rodriguez announced. "Phase generators are operating at optimal levels. Dimensional barriers are stable." Carter looked at the timer. 6 hours and 53 minutes remaining. Soon the galaxy would learn that humanity could not be caged. "Ma'am," called Dr. Rodriguez, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Captain Miller. Reconnaissance mission has returned with additional intelligence." Carter nodded. "Put him through." Jake's face appeared. On the main screen, his expression grim. "Madam President, we've intercepted new communications from the hegemony. They're planning to divide our solar system between themselves after the deadline. The Zephyrians want Earth and Mars. The Valdorians claim the asteroid belt mining rights. The others will split the outer colonies." "Let them plan," Carter replied calmly. "In a few hours, they'll find empty space where our worlds used to be." But Jake shook his head. "There's more, ma'am. They're bringing something called a reality anchor. It's some kind of ancient Archon technology designed to prevent dimensional manipulation. They deploy it before we phase out. ... Double quotes. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, her face pale. "A reality anchor would lock us into normal space. We'd be trapped." Carter felt ice in her veins. How long until they deploy it? According to their communications, 2 hours after the deadline expires. They want to give us time to surrender first. Carter looked at the countdown timer. That gave them less than 9 hours to complete the phase transition. It would be close, but they had planned for emergencies. "Dr. Rodriguez, can we accelerate?" The timeline. The scientist was already running calculations on her portable computer. "Yes, but it will be dangerous. The phase generators weren't designed to operate at maximum power for extended periods. We risk dimensional instability." "What does that mean in simple terms?" "We could tear a hole in space itself. Or worse, we could get stuck between dimensions, unable to exist in either reality." Carter stared at the countdown timer. 6 hours and 47 minutes? Do it anyway. Better to risk everything than accept slavery? Across the solar system, human technicians began pushing their impossible machines beyond safe limits. On Mars Colony, engineer Pete Wilson watched his phase generator's energy output climb into the red zone. On Europa Station, Dr. Helen Adams monitored dimensional stability readings that made no sense according to known physics. On Titan Base, Commander Rick Davis felt the entire moon vibrate as the phase generators reached maximum power. In space above Earth, Admiral Stone noticed the change immediately. "Sir," called his sensor operator, "I'm reading massive energy spikes from all human installations. Whatever they're building down there, they just kicked it into overdrive. Through his binoculars, Stone could see the alien fleets repositioning themselves. The enemy commanders were nervous, unsure what humanity might be planning. "Admiral," came a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. "This is Fleet Commander Grixtal. We demand to know the nature of your energy emissions. Any attempt to deploy weapons will result in immediate retaliation." Stone activated his communications array. "Commander Grixtal, you will have your answer in 6 hours and 38 minutes. The alien's reply was filled with anger. "Human arrogance will be your destruction. When your time expires, you will surrender or face annihilation." Stone smiled grimly. "We shall see." On Earth, Dr. Rodriguez watched her instruments with growing concern. The accelerated timeline was pushing the phase generators to their absolute limits. Warning lights flashed across every control panel. "Ma'am," she called to President Carter, "we're detecting microfractures in the dimensional matrix. The barriers between realities are starting to crack." Carter joined her at the main console. The readings showed dangerous fluctuations in the fabric of space itself. "If these fractures spread," Dr. Rodriguez continued, "they could cascade across the entire solar system.
Ow.
We're not just risking our own existence. We could damage the structure of reality itself." Carter stared at the data, then at the countdown. "Timer, 6 hours and 12 minutes remaining. How long can the generators hold? At current power levels, maybe 4 hours? If we push them harder, maybe 2. Carter made the hardest decision of her life. Push them harder. We can't let the hegemony deploy that reality anchor.
Dr. Rodriguez nodded
And began issuing new orders. Across the solar system, the phase generators roared to life with even greater intensity. On Mars, Pete Wilson watched his equipment shake itself apart while continuing to function. On Europa, Dr. Adams saw readings that defied every law of physics she had ever learned. On Titan, Commander Davis felt the moon itself beginning to phase in and out of normal space. In the alien fleets above Earth, panic was beginning to spread. "Commander," called the sensor operator aboard the Zephyrian flagship, "the human energy signatures are off the scale. We've never recorded anything like this." Fleet Commander Grixtal studied the readings with growing alarm. "What are they building?" "Down there, unknown, sir. But the energy output suggests a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems." Grixtal felt fear creep into his heart. The hegemony had assured him that humanity posed no real threat. Young species were not supposed to have access to such incredible power. "Signal the other fleets," he ordered. "Prepare for immediate attack. Cannot allow the humans to complete whatever they are building." But before the alien weapons could charge, something impossible happened. Earth flickered. For just a moment, the blue planet seemed to fade from normal space, becoming translucent like a ghost. Then it solidified again, but something had changed. The energy readings coming from the planet were now completely beyond measurement. "What just happened?" Grixtal demanded. His science officer was staring at her instruments in confusion. For approximately 1.3 seconds, Earth ceased to exist in our reality. Then it returned, but the quantum signature has completely changed. Across all 17 alien fleets, similar reports were coming in. The human homeworld was doing something that should have been impossible on Earth. Dr. Rodriguez was shouting over the roar of overstressed machinery. Phase generators at 120%. Dimensional barriers holding, but barely. President Carter watched the countdown timer. For hours and 57 minutes. They were ahead of schedule, but at a terrible cost. Every human installation in the solar system was pushing technology beyond its design limits. "Ma'am," called Captain Miller from his monitoring station, "I'm picking up alien fleet movements. They're preparing to attack." Carter looked at the tactical displays. The alien ships were powering weapons and moving into attack formations. "They're scared," she realized. "They know we're doing something they can't understand, and they're afraid to let us finish." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her instruments. If they attack now, the weapon's impacts could destabilize the phase generators. "We need more time." Carter activated the planetary communication system. "Admiral Stone, you are authorized to engage the enemy. Buy us whatever time you can." High above Earth, Admiral Stone received the order with grim satisfaction. Liberty Prime and the small human defense fleet were vastly outnumbered, but they had one advantage the aliens didn't know about. All ships, Stone transmitted, activate, phase shields, and prepare for combat. Show them what happens when you corner humanity. The human ships shimmered and became translucent, existing partially in normal space and partially in the dimensional realm. Alien weapons fired at them passed through harmlessly. While human return fire struck with devastating accuracy, the battle for Earth's freedom had begun. While Admiral Stone's ships fought desperately against impossible odds, Dr. Rodriguez made the final preparations for humanity's greatest gamble. In 3 hours and 41 minutes, Earth and all her children would step outside reality itself. 6 months had passed since Earth vanished from normal space. Fleet Commander Grixtel stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the empty coordinates where the human homeworld should have been. His sensors showed nothing but cosmic dust. And fading radiation? Still no sign of them? He asked his science officer. None, sir. It's as if they never existed. Even their quantum signatures have been erased from space itself. Grixtel felt unease growing in his stomach. The hegemony leaders had assured him that the humans were gone forever, but strange reports were coming. In from across the galaxy, ships were being disabled by unknown weapons. Trade routes were being disrupted by vessels that appeared and disappeared at will. Most disturbing of all, classified hegemony documents were being broadcast on public communication channels. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we're receiving another of those mysterious transmissions." The main screen lit up with a message that had been appearing throughout hegemony space for weeks. It showed detailed records of secret meetings, proof of conspiracy, evidence of crimes that the Shadow Organization had committed for thousands of years. "This is impossible," Grixtel muttered. "How are they getting this information?" His question was answered by a voice that seemed to come from empty space itself, "Because we are everywhere and you cannot see us." Every alien on the bridge spun. Around, weapons drawn, but there was no one there. The voice continued, calm and confident. "This is Captain Susan Blake of the Earth Space Navy. We know you're listening, Commander Grixtel. We know about your orders to hunt down human survivors. We know about the hegemony's plans to divide our solar system between your 5 species." Grixtel's blood ran cold.
Ow.
Those plans were classified at the highest levels.
Ow.
How could humans know about them? "You cannot hide from us," the invisible voice continued. "We exist in a dimension you cannot reach, but we can reach you whenever we choose. The galaxy is learning the truth about your shadow empire, and soon your control will crumble." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in terrified silence. Grixtel had faced many enemies in his long military career, but how do you fight an enemy you cannot see or touch? Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on thousands of ships and stations. The mysterious human broadcasts were spreading like wildfire, carrying evidence that shocked even species that had served the hegemony for centuries. On the independent world of Kepler-7, Senator Calavas read the latest intelligence reports. With growing anger, documents showed how the hegemony had manipulated her government for decades, stalling puppet leaders and crushing any attempt at true independence. "This changes everything," she told her aide, Lieutenant Colonel Bob Martinez, a human military officer who had been trapped on Kepler-7 when Earth disappeared. "If this evidence is real, then the entire galactic government is built on lies." Bob nodded grimly. "It's real, ma'am. I recognize some of these operation codes from classified briefings I attended before the trial. The hegemony has been playing puppet master with the entire galaxy." Kala activated her secure communicator. "I need to contact the other independent senators. If we can verify this evidence, we have grounds to call for a complete investigation of the hegemony." But before she could send the message, her office was filled with a strange shimmer. The air itself seemed to bend, and suddenly 2 figures materialized out of nothing. Bob reached for his weapon, then stopped in amazement. The figures wore the blue uniforms of the Earth Space Navy. "Senator Voss," said the woman who appeared to be the leader, "I am Commander Ryan Davis of the Human." Intelligence Division. We need to talk. Kala stared at the impossible visitors. How did you get in here? My security systems detected nothing. We exist in a parallel dimension, Ryan explained. Your sensors cannot detect us because we're not entirely in your reality. We can observe, we can act, but we cannot be harmed by conventional weapons. The second figure, a tall man with lieutenant's bars, stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm Lieutenant Carl Thompson. We've been monitoring hegemony communications throughout this sector. We know that Chancellor Vexstar has ordered your assassination. Because of your questions about the human trial, Kala felt ice in her veins. Assassination? When tomorrow? Ryan replied. A team of Zephyrian Special Forces will stage a terrorist attack on your office. You'll be killed, along with several other independent senators who have been asking inconvenient questions. Bob moved protectively toward Kala. Can you stop it? Ryan smiled grimly. We already have. The assassination team will find their weapons mysteriously malfunctioning. Their explosives will fail to detonate. Their escape ship will suffer sudden engine failure. They'll be captured alive and forced to confess who sent them. But more importantly, Lieutenant Thompson added, we can give you something even more valuable. Direct access to hegemony command communications. Real-time intelligence about their operations. He handed Kala a small device that looked like nothing she had ever seen before. This quantum communicator will allow you to coordinate with resistance. Movements on dozens of worlds. The galaxy is waking up, Senator. Species that have been oppressed for millennia are finally ready to fight back. Kala looked at the device with wonder. What do you want in return? Justice, Ryan replied simply. The hegemony condemned humanity to death for the crime of being too successful, too quickly. We're going to show the galaxy what real success looks like. Meanwhile, in the hidden dimension, where Earth now existed, President Carter stood in the Global Council chambers, addressing representatives from around the world. The debate had been raging for hours about humanity's next move. We have the power to remain hidden forever, argued General Paul Martinez. Our dimensional technology makes us completely safe from retaliation. Why risk everything by getting involved in galactic politics? Dr. Rodriguez disagreed, because it's not just about us anymore. Paul, the evidence we've gathered shows that the hegemony has been crushing technological development throughout the galaxy for thousands of years. Entire species have been prevented from reaching their potential. Captain Miller, recently promoted after his successful intelligence mission, stood to address the council. I've seen the reports from our reconnaissance teams. The galaxy is full of species that could have reached the stars centuries ago, but the hegemony kept them primitive to maintain control. We have a moral obligation to help them. Carter listened to the debate with growing certainty about what needed to be done. The question isn't whether we should act, she said finally. The question is how far we're willing to go. She activated the main display, showing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Our phase reconnaissance teams have documented systematic oppression on over 300 worlds. The hegemony doesn't just control the major species. They control everyone. The evidence was overwhelming. The hegemony had prevented countless civilizations from developing faster than light travel by sabotaging their research. They had started wars between species to prevent alliances that might threaten their control. They had even destroyed entire planets when their populations became too advanced. But we have advantages they cannot understand, Dr. Rodriguez added. Our dimensional technology allows us to operate anywhere in the galaxy without detection. We can gather intelligence, disable their weapons, rescue their victims, and they cannot retaliate against us. General Martinez remained skeptical. And what happens when they develop countermeasures? What happens when they figure out how to track us? Captain Miller smiled. Sir, they've been trying to understand our technology for 6 months, their greatest. Scientific minds cannot even comprehend the basic principles we're using. Dimensional manipulation requires a type of thinking that their rigid, hierarchical societies simply cannot produce. Carter made her decision. We're going to do more than just expose their crimes. We're going to actively support every resistance movement in the galaxy. We're going to give oppressed species the technology they need to defend themselves. We're going to level the playing field permanently. The vote was close, but democracy prevailed. Humanity would become the galaxy's liberator. Within days, the effects were felt across known space. On the mining world of Altair 6, workers found advanced manufacturing equipment mysteriously appearing in their facilities, along with plans for building their own spacecraft. On the agricultural planet of Vega Prime, farmers discovered weapons caches that would allow them to resist hegemony tax collectors. Most dramatically, on the fortress world of Sigma Draconis, the hegemony's most secure prison was infiltrated by invisible soldiers who freed thousands of political prisoners. The guards never saw their attackers, never detected their ships, never understood how their most impregnable facility had been breached. Chancellor Vexstar received the reports with growing panic. How many worlds have been affected? His intelligence chief, a trembling Valdorian named Kexmore, consulted his datapad. 47 confirmed incidents this week alone, sir. The humans are arming resistance movements faster than we can suppress them. Then we use the reality anchors, Vexstar decided. Deploy them throughout our core systems. Force the humans back into normal space where we can destroy them. But when the ancient Archon devices were activated, nothing happened. 1 year had passed since the Galaxy Senate delivered their judgment against humanity. In the Grand Chambers on Nexus Prime, an emergency session was being called. Chancellor Vexstar stood before the assembly, his forearms trembling with rage and fear. Honored members, he began, his voice echoing through the dome. We face an unprecedented crisis. The humans, who we thought were safely contained, have become a plague upon galactic order. Around the chamber, representatives from hundreds of species listened with growing unease. Many of them had received reports of mysterious incidents in their own territories, ships disabled by invisible attackers, weapons that malfunctioned at crucial moments, classified documents appearing on public networks. They strike from shadows, Vexstar continued. They cannot be detected, cannot be fought, cannot be reasoned with. They have turned the galaxy against its rightful leaders. Senator Kalavas stood up in the independent section. Perhaps the galaxy is simply learning the truth about its so-called leaders. A murmur ran through the assembly. In the past year, Kala had become the voice of the resistance movement, organizing dozens of species against hegemony control. Vexstar's golden eyes blazed with fury. The truth is that these humans are terrorists, striking at civilization itself.
Ow.
Came a voice from empty air that made every being in the chamber freeze in terror. The truth is that your time is over. The air in the center of the chamber began to shimmer. Slowly, impossibly, a human figure materialized out of nothing. Then another. Then dozens more, until the entire floor was filled with beings in blue. Earth Uniforms Ambassador John Harrison stepped forward, looking exactly as he had 1 year ago when he had stood alone before the assembled galaxy. But he was no longer alone. Behind him stood President Lisa Carter, Admiral Kevin Stone, Captain Jake Miller, and representatives from every human colony. The chamber erupted in chaos. Security forces rushed forward, weapons drawn, only to find that their energy blasts passed harmlessly through the human figures. The humans existed partially in normal space, visible but untouchable. Impossible, Vexstar whispered. President Carter stepped beside John, her voice carrying clearly through the massive chamber. 1 year ago, you voted to isolate humanity. You believed us to be a threat to your established order. You were correct. Gestured, and the air above the chamber filled with holographic displays showing scenes from across the galaxy. Resistance fighters on dozens of worlds armed with advanced human technology, fighting against hegemony forces. Oppressed species building their first spacecraft with mysteriously provided plans. Political prisoners being freed from supposedly impregnable fortresses. We are indeed a threat, Carter continued, to tyranny, to oppression, to the system of control you have maintained for millennia. Archon Prime Tervel rose from his ancient seat, his voice heavy with authority. You dare to challenge the natural order of the galaxy? We have maintained peace for 10,000 years. Admiral Stone stepped forward, his expression hard. Peace. You call systematic oppression peace? You call technological suppression peace? You call the destruction of entire civilizations peace? The holographic displays changed, showing evidence that made gasps echo through the chamber. Planets destroyed by artificial disasters when their populations became too advanced. Species held back from space travel for centuries through sabotage and manipulation. Entire star systems depopulated to maintain resource control. "This is what your peace looks like," Captain Miller said, his voice carrying to every corner of the dome. "Thousands of species kept primitive and powerless, while you 5 empires divide the galaxy between yourselves." Trade Minister Zekalon of the Valdorian Consortium stood angrily. "The younger species are not ready for advanced technology. We protect them from their own destructive impulses." "Like you protected the Altarians?" John asked quietly. "The species you exterminated 3,000 years ago when they developed faster-than-light communication." Zekalon's face went pale. "That genocide was supposed to be completely classified." "Or the vegans," Carter added, "who you poisoned with engineered plagues when they started asking questions about galactic history." "The Centaurians," Stone continued, "whose entire civilization you erased from the historical records after they discovered evidence of your conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming. For every crime the humans named, they provided detailed documentation. Secret communications between hegemony leaders, orders for assassinations and sabotage, financial records showing how resistance movements had been crushed through economic warfare." "You had a choice," Carter said, her voice rising to fill the chamber. "When you discovered humanity, you could have welcomed us as partners. You could have guided us, taught us, helped us grow responsibly. Instead, you chose fear. You chose to see us as a threat to be eliminated." X-Star tried to regain control. "We acted to preserve galactic stability. Your species expands too rapidly, advances too quickly. You would have disrupted the balance we have carefully maintained." "Balance?" John laughed bitterly. "You mean the balance that keeps you in power while everyone else suffers in ignorance?" The hive-mind representative spoke with the voice of billions. "The humans cannot understand the complexity of galactic governance. Some species must lead, others must follow." "And who decided that?" Admiral Stone asked. "You?" 5 species out of the thousands in this galaxy decided that they alone were worthy of advanced technology and political power. President Carter activated a device on her wrist. Throughout the chamber, new holographic displays appeared, showing scenes from across human space. Earth, visible once again in normal reality, surrounded by impossible orbital structures. Mars transformed into a garden world through advanced terraforming. Europa, now home to floating cities that move through the moon's subsurface ocean. "This is what happens when a species is allowed to reach its full potential," Carter said. "In just 1 year of isolation, we have advanced our civilization by centuries. We have solved energy scarcity, developed matter replication technology, and achieved true dimensional control." Now, the displays showed more wonders. Asteroid belts converted into massive industrial complexes. Space elevators stretching from planetary surfaces to orbital rings. Ships that moved between dimensions as easily as sailing through space. "But most importantly," Carter continued, "we have shared these advances freely with every species brave enough to stand up to your tyranny." Senator Kala Voss stood again, her voice strong and clear. "The independent worlds have voted. We no longer recognize the authority of the hegemony. We call for the dissolution of the current galactic government and the establishment of a true democracy where all species have equal voice." Cheers erupted from sections throughout the chamber. Representatives from dozens of worlds rose to voice their support. The carefully maintained order that the hegemony had built over thousands of years was crumbling before their eyes. Vexstar made one last desperate attempt to maintain control. "You forget that we still command the most powerful fleets in the AV galaxy. Military force will restore order." "Will it?" Admiral Stone asked with a cold smile. The chamber's windows suddenly filled with an impossible sight. Outside in the space around Nexus Prime, a massive fleet had appeared as if from nowhere. Hundreds of human warships, their hulls gleaming with unknown alloys, their weapons charged with energies that made nearby space itself glow. "This is Admiral Stone to all hegemony forces." His voice boomed through every communication channel. "In the system, you are ordered to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with immediate disabling of your vessels." "You cannot defeat us all," Vexstar snarled. "The combined fleets of 5 empires outnumber you 1,000 to 1. "Numbers mean nothing," Stone replied, "when your weapons cannot touch us, and ours can reach you anywhere in the galaxy." As if to demonstrate, Zephyrian battlecruisers throughout the system suddenly found their weapons mysteriously offline. Valdorian destroyers lost engine power. Crystalline collective ships discovered their shields had simply stopped working. The mighty hegemony fleets were reduced to helpless targets in a matter of minutes. "How?" Tervel whispered. Dr. Amy Rodriguez materialized beside President Carter, her scientific equipment visible through her translucent form. "Dimensional quantum disruption," she explained simply. "We can reach into your ship's systems from parallel space and disable them at the molecular level. Your technology cannot defend against weapons that exist in different dimensions." The surrender was swift. Faced with the choice between capture and destruction, hegemony commanders across the galaxy began standing down their forces. Empire that had controlled galactic civilization for millennia collapsed in a single day. "The Galaxy Senate hereby recognizes," Senator Kalavas announced formally, "that our judgment of humanity was in error. We formally request that Earth consider rejoining galactic society, not as subjects to our rules, but as partners in building a better future." President Carter looked around the chamber at the faces of hundreds of species, many of them seeing hope for the first time in their lives. "The vote against Earth was indeed your last mistake," she said quietly.